Welcome to MindMakers. I'm John Kim, co-founder and CEO of Sendbird. We're an AI agent for delightful customer services. On this show, I talk to people who are building the next generation of artificial intelligence. From founders to executives to technologists, we're shaping the future of AI and its real-world impact. Today, I'm joined by Kevin Chung, CSO at Ryder. Ryder is an end-to-end agent builder platform that unites IT and business. Hopefully I got that right.
You got it right. Thanks, John. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, and you've been on the Ryder team for more than 2 years now. And it's been part of their growth journey. But before then, you've been at Google, Miro, Dropbox. So hopefully you're bringing a lot of the wealth of knowledge and experience to the fast-growing startup. Welcome to the show. How are you feeling today?
I'm feeling great. Just got off the plane from Singapore, about an hour, but ready to rock. I'm excited to be here to chat with you.
Thanks so much for joining after this one of the longest flights, I guess, in the world.
Yeah.
So maybe we can start by, would you mind telling our audience a little bit about your own story?
Sure.
And how you also joined the team at Ryder?
Yeah, absolutely. So I was actually born in the Bay Area, born in Oakland. I lived here. My radius of work and living was like 20 miles. So I went to school at UC Berkeley, started working. The furthest I ever went was probably Mountain View. I worked at Google for a bit. And, been working in Silicon Valley for the last 20 years at some really, really fascinating companies. Just really fortunate to be on that journey. So after Google was at Dropbox, I was there for a number of years, then worked for a cybersecurity company, and then went over to Miro basically 4 or 5 days before the pandemic started.
Wow.
So it was pretty crazy. So joined the company, was told to come to the office on Monday, and then on Sunday got an email saying, don't come into the office, nobody's coming in, pick up your laptop and go home. And I was basically working from home for 3 years.
Wow.
And that was it was a pretty incredible journey there because we saw massive growth at that company during the pandemic, as you could imagine. And then I decided I wanted to take a little break. I thought I was going to take about 6 months off. And then I met May and Wasim at Ryder and was joined them about a month later. So it was a pretty fast journey to join them. And it was an incredible ride so far in the last 2 years that I've seen.
Yeah, and joining Miro around COVID must have been a perfect timing because I think a lot of people adopted Miro during the kind of remote working environment.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit more about that.
Yeah, I mean, Miro was an interesting one. It was a product at the time I hadn't heard too much about or used, but I knew a number of people actually from my Dropbox days who had joined. So I met with them and they were telling me a little bit about the story. And I was like, this is a pretty fascinating product that I'd love to learn more about. And it was like a tidal wave. Like you go in and like the first day when everybody's scrambling just to figure out how to work from home, like nobody had physical whiteboards anymore. Everybody needed a way to communicate. So remember Zoom like took off in a big way. Miro had the same thing with visual collaboration. So it was like hang by the seat of your pants type of stuff. But I think a big part of that trained me for what was to come with Ryder. And like the level of sort of growth and intensity is like sort of unparalleled from what we've seen in the last 2 years. It's been insane.
Yeah. It's like you've been part of companies that went through a lot of kind of incredible changes and challenges, like Miro with the tailwind of COVID. But also, I think there's really interesting story about Ryder.
Yeah.
It did not start out as Ryder. Going back in time a little bit, I think the company started out as a name called Cordova.
Correct.
So can you walk us through very briefly the journey of how Cordova became Ryder?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, so the story really starts with May Habib and Wasim Al-Sheikh, who are the co-founders. And they found each other over 10 years ago as working partners in terms of trying to start a company. Cordova was really more like a translation business that they started off with. Both weren't native English speakers to begin with, or at least Wasim wasn't. And I think they were really interested in how to use translation at that time. And that's when they started to tinker with like the transformers and all these different types of components. And like that core business is where they started to build, I think, a lot of, the power of where they wanted to start, where they wanted to learn. And then in 2020, I think they saw an opportunity of where AI and generative AI was going. So they quickly pivoted the company. And the name itself didn't really make sense for what they wanted to do next. So they were able to get the name Ryder, which was a great domain, and to be able to pivot the company to a generative AI company in 2020. So really, really early in terms of thinking about getting into AI that early. But the big part of it is the two of them, right? It's just them being able to really see through the cloud and say, hey, this is something that we want to do and pivot. So that's the change.
Yeah, and I guess one of the common dreams of founders is to get the one word kind of .com or branded domain.
Yeah.
But I guess one challenge with Ryder was like, one, amazing domain, but how do you actually build a brand around that? It's such a one single word that everybody uses on a
Right.
day-to-day basis.
Right. Well, I think as we've learned, is we've seen a lot of companies now have sort of that one word.com. And sometimes in many cases, it's like it does either represent or doesn't represent. I think the first thing when I joined the company, understanding what it was, it's like it can sometimes put you in a box in terms of like what it actually means. But over time, as you sort of deliver more and more value, you can start to understand and people can start to differentiate a little bit. But we still, so to speak, I would say, Writer in of itself is now we're trying to establish the brand as what we're able to deliver, what we can do. And some people still may think about it as a writing assistant, but I think now, given the traction we have with enterprises and Fortune 10 and Global 2000, we're now at a stage where I think people really understand where we are. We want to honestly be synonymous with enterprise AI. That's what we want Writer's brand to stand for, and I think that's our aspiration, and that's where we're headed.
I don't know if this ever been disclosed in any other place or any other podcast. Do you know how much company paid for the writer.com domain?
I was told I would get the story over drink sometime. I have yet to get the full story, but I will get it one day.
All right. Well,
yeah, maybe at my 4 years we'll find out.
Yeah. We'll maybe invite you to the next episode.
Yeah, there you
find
go.
out more. All right. Well, thanks for setting the stage. So maybe now I'm kind of moving on to the present. Let's kind of dive into the current state of AI. And there's lots of reports out there now coming out from a lot of different well-established media that anywhere from 75% to like 90% of AI projects, pilots, and enterprises are failing. But also we, as people in the industry, we feel there's a lot of innovation that's happening. A lot of our customers are actually realizing the value. So kind of what are your thoughts on this disconnect?
Yeah, totally. And even recently, MIT released a study that said 95% of AI projects have zero return at $30 to $40 billion of investment. Those are not good numbers whatsoever. What I would say is that 5% are writer customers and the 95% is everybody else. But just joking aside, really, I don't think many of these stats are necessarily wrong, right? I mean, we talk to lots of customers, prospects, people in the market and what they're trying to do. And this is a really, really hard problem to solve, right? To get right. We're also really early in the AI journey. So it isn't as if like all the different stats are just depends on who you're asking. But I think the big challenge really is there's a lot of failure going on right now. And that's the biggest challenge that a lot of organizations are trying to overcome. And that hurdle is what's really causing a lot of people some consternation around, well, do I really want to keep spending money on this? Like, when do I pivot? When do I want to start thinking that this isn't the right thing for me? But I think what we're seeing is it's been a while. I mean, 2+ years or more, people are sticking through it. And the ones that are finding success are finding massive success. And we can talk more about, sort of those ROIs that we're seeing and those customers. But, I don't doubt that there are a lot that are failing because there's so many components you need to get right. And it's pretty tricky.
Nice.
Yeah, you need a good guide to get you there.
Yeah, I mean, we're experiencing this as firsthand at December too. When we see some of our customers roll out AI for customer service, the amount of resolution we can do it autonomously using AI agents like very, very surprisingly high.
Yeah.
So we're really happy about that. But I was spending like 4 hours last night with our ML and engineering team just to ramp up because we just launched our voice AI agent.
Nice.
And very, very exciting moment. So I was trying to like out prompt our engineering team.
Yeah.
I'm like, I still have it in me.
Yeah.
Spend 4 hours plus just trying to write the perfect prompt. I'm like, man, these things are fickle.
Yeah.
It's like trying to teach this kind of kid who just doesn't listen to you,
Mm-hmm.
but have wealth of knowledge.
Yeah.
But just get them to like really kind of act on what you're telling them to do. It's
Right.
like really, really hard.
Yeah.
So I think there's a lot of kind of knowledge and experience that you just have to kind of experience through to get AI agent to work at an
100%.
enterprise level.
100%.
And I think that's where a lot of people kind of mistakenly understand, like you just buy one of the software and it will just work. Actually, you have to have a lot of tech stacks and everything and a lot of secret sauce go into it to make it work at enterprise.
100%. Like we use this term, and I think people have heard of it enough, which is called the last mile, right? So you could buy the software, you could have the people, you could put those components in place, but if it doesn't get you to like the accuracy, the output, the efficiency that you need, then it doesn't matter. It's like you're going to put all this effort in and you're going to get shit at the end outcome, and that's not what you want, right? And a big part of it too is like when we have a lot of customers, and we will probably talk about this some more, there's so many enterprises, particularly when you talk about Global 2000, they believe that they can build this themselves, right? And It's sort of like I remember back in the early Dropbox days, like we would have all the large like companies come and say, we're going to build cloud storage ourselves. Like our user base is going to adopt them. We're like, you could do that, but why would you do that? Like you've got these great companies who basically are spending 100% of their time focused on this problem. We have like top-notch researchers that focus on this problem. Why would you do a side project and try to figure out cloud storage? It's the same thing that I always say about like CRM. Why would you not buy a proven CRM system like Salesforce when a lot of companies are like, oh, I'm going to build it myself? With AI, it's like a completely different game, right? So it's like there's really just limited amount of knowledge who've like really done this, who live this day in and day out. So that's definitely a big problem. Like it's hard. It's a hard problem to solve.
Which is interesting because I'm assuming also when you were, first started talking to the team writer, you probably had your own kind of little bit reservations or
Yeah.
some doubts around AI.
Yeah.
Probably played around with AI yourself a little bit. It's like, oh, maybe it's not quite there yet. And also, I think we're coming off of that wave of metaverse. So I think there's a lot of skepticism around any kind of new hype that was going in the valley. So
Yeah.
I kind of like got you cross that leap or take that leap of faith to join Writer team.
Well, like, it's funny you mentioned metaverse. I remember like it was like late 2022, early 23. It was like literally every company like paused their strategy and was like, we need a metaverse strategy. Like even at Miro, we were like building metaverse apps. And it was like, when you look back at it, I don't know anybody who would be like wanting to wear a 20-pound headset trying to do a virtual meeting. It just doesn't make sense. But we did that, right? And so coming off of like that, I was sort of like, I'm going to be very skeptical about what technology I'm going to go to next, because, you could jump on a wave and it could be over in 6 months. But honestly, like I only needed 5 minutes talking to May and Wasim. I mean, Ryder was probably the first company I joined that I hadn't worked with somebody internally. It wasn't like an internal referral. I actually got introduced through one of the board members who I had worked with, but nobody in the company I had worked with before. And so, I went in very skeptical, being like, okay, I'm not sure about the technology, but I'm also not sure about this team. But when I met with May, I sat down with her. I was just like, she is one of the most impressive founders I've ever met. And she was just, at the time they had a handful of customers, but she was literally showing me, she walked me through the pitch deck. She was showing me the text message thread that she had with the CEO of like a Fortune 100 company that was like, look at the stuff that we're doing with them. Look how integrated we are into their business. Look how much they trust us. And I was like, wow, this is a founder that really wants to like win the enterprise and like has the muscle to really go at it in the relationship and wants to do it. So I was like, wow, the people was the big part of it. And I was like, even though I'd never used Ryder and I'd never heard about it, I was like, hey, it's worth giving it a shot, right? Like, it's like when you've got that much conviction, like, there can be some good things, but I think there was a little bit of magic when I saw May and Wasim for the first time, like on what they were working on.
Yeah, she certainly is a force of nature. I think I met her first at one of the iconic events.
Yeah.
And a few years back at Davos too. And it's like she was really commanding the room and very comfortable in front of the Fortune, 500, 100.
Yeah.
And a lot of executives around the world. And it's very, very impressive.
Yeah, totally.
Nice. So you've been in this role now as a CSO and writer for a couple of years now. And I guess the art of strategy is also kind of looking at the long term, right?
Yeah.
What are the trade-offs you're making between the short term and long term? The art of saying no.
Yep.
So what are some of the hard, difficult trade-offs did you need to make at Ryder or even at previous organization that you really feel like strategy is an important thing?
Yeah, I would say like, specifically with Ryder. So when I first joined, I was tasked with building up the partnerships organization, right? So, a big part of it was Ryder didn't have a strong brand. We didn't have partners to help us scale. And I'd been doing partners for a long time, knowing that like the distribution of the large scale partners are going to help you get there. So a big part of the original, say yes or say no was like determining which partners, because there's like thousands of partners you could talk to. It's just about picking the right ones and where you're going to spend your time with. So a big part of that was like organizing, like, where do I want to spend my time? Because on day one, I immediately was like, I got to learn a new technology. And the fascinating thing about AI, as you know, is like, we're not talking about a one product that fits all. It's like when we're dealing with, and particularly with Ryder, because it's an end-to-end solution, it covers multiple different departments and multiple different industries. Like we're learning like thousands of different use cases every month, right? And we're trying to learn a new industry and like build solution sets around it. So it feels for us like we're almost needing to revise like our pitch decks every month or so because the technology is moving quickly and we're serving so many industries, right? So a big part of it is like on day one, I'm like trying to basically drink from the fire hose and absorb all this information. But also at the same time, like I'm also trying to figure out like, what am I going to actually do? What am I going to execute against? So I found my days to be very long and also like just didn't feel like I completed anything in like my first year. But a big part of it was like realizing I couldn't, like at a certain point, I was like, can't take this meeting, can't talk to this partner, can really only prioritize these like 3 things and go and execute it. So that was the big learning, which was like, I wanted to do more than I could chew, but realistically, it was like I could really only do very little.
Yeah, I think that's super interesting because I think the big part of exercise we're also going through ourselves is as we tack on more projects with enterprise clients, it's just not like a self-service model where they just come in and start using from day one. They have to be like given a lot of,
Yeah.
I guess, almost like a consultative experience.
Yes.
Especially in the end-to-end as an end-to-end solution.
Yeah.
So is there like a method you use to kind of, whether it be scorecard or way to kind of frame or prioritize some of these accounts and relationships?
Yeah. So I mean, there's a couple of ways I'll answer that. There's an approach that we take at Ryder. I think that's pretty key. It kind of goes to exactly what you mentioned, John, which is like we call it first. We're going to be hands on keyboard with our customers, which means like we're going to be working side by side with them. Then what we want to do is we want to move to this approach of hand on shoulder, where we'll step back, right, and we're going to watch the customer kind of work and watch them through that. But the ultimate goal is to go completely hands off. Right. That's kind of like our philosophy, right? So on day one, we're going to be there with you. We're basically going to be like an employee of your company. We're going to understand your processes. We're going to pair, our best-in-class solution with your best-in-class workflows and help you understand how you can marry those things together. But over time, we want to give you sort of the keys of the kingdom to go do that. And so I think that's actually the secret to how we've been really successful in the enterprise is that it's not we sell you something and hey, see you later when it's renewal time. It's like we're in there day to day, like talking to them. We want to intimately understand their workflows because that's how we're going to better be able to build for them. And I think that's the big piece in enterprise that's quite different from anything else you see. It's like that's why like consumer grade AI doesn't work, off the shelf doesn't work here, because everything that you do has to be highly customized, has to be highly specific. And even customers that are in the same industry, like they have different processes anyway. So like they just have to be done in a completely different way. So that's the way we've been able to be successful. But a lot of it is like just tactically, we understand their business. We'll do like use case mapping sessions. We're like literally in those team Slack channels, team channels. We're like a part of their team in many cases. And that's the only way it can work.
Nice. Actually, 2 follow-up questions. But yeah. I just came back from this YC, now what they call the founder mode retreat. And I was listening to Stephen Cohen, one of the co-founders and president of Palantir, who kind of basically invented the forward deployment teams.
Mm-hmm.
So we also do that a lot at Sember. It's like we actually fly out our team to the on-site with customers to make sure they really understand how to use the technology and make sure that they get the kind of proof of value, the initial success. But also there's a lot of, I guess, notes in the industry where a lot of investors are worried that their portfolio companies, their cost of sales are going through the roof because they're deploying this like expensive product managers and engineers and business leaders who are actually on the site spending a ton of time with customers. So how do you kind of think about the capacity modeling or getting to that efficiency around go-to-market? Or is that maybe not even a priority at this point because we're really in the land grab mode?
I mean, it's a little bit of all of that. I mean, just to give you a sense of our scale, we've got like hundreds of customers in the Global 2000, many in the Fortune 500, and we've got like probably equal number of employees. It's like a one-to-one mapping. So right now we're trying to scale as quickly as possible to handle that demand. So there's a couple ways we're doing that. One, a lot can be done virtually. We do go on site quite often, and particularly for our larger accounts, like we'll go on site, we'll bring our team and be able to help them. But I think the ROI there is worthwhile only because like we see massive expansion with those customers. In many cases, we can do a lot of things remotely. And also we're leveraging partners as well. So we're in a stage where we're able to train partners to help deliver on some of the value there. We still like to have a lot of our key people there kind of on day one. But as we start to upskill our partners, that's a great way to scale with leveraging, like we work very closely with many of the SIs, including Accenture. They have a workforce of 700,000 people. So, tapping into our partners are definitely another way to get to it.
Yeah. I think a lot of companies like Accenture, Deloitte, and these companies are certainly riding that wave of AI.
Yeah.
I just met with the CEO at Accenture in London at one of the Wall Street Journal's events. It's impressive how they were able to kind of capture this opportunity and use it to really kind of grow their business.
Totally.
I guess kind of a second question is you kind of mentioned about winning a lot of these enterprise accounts around the world, hundreds of them among the global 2,000. How do you make sure your company stands out among through the noise? And what was Ryder's kind of secret sauce around kind of gaining that mind share in the business?
Yeah. I mean, I think from day one, it's been a relentless focus on enterprise. Like, I would say like if you were to ask me in like 2023 when I joined the company, the brand wasn't that well recognized. It was, you have to like bang on a lot of doors to get people to like take your meetings when they're really like they look at the large players and say, hey, those are trusted brands. You can never get fired for picking Microsoft, right?
Yeah.
And so, a big part of it is delivering value, right? And so I think that at the end of the day, I think when we started to see the ball roll downhill was, you win a customer, we have Accenture as a customer, Qualcomm, Salesforce, Vanguard, Franklin Templeton, Intuit, Dropbox. So once you start to get these large organizations using you, and then they start loving your product and talking to other CIOs and other CEOs and CMOs talking to each other about using the product, then it starts to spread, right? And so a big part of it was like, you just have to delight the customers enough to a degree where they're like, this is a tool that I can't live without. And these, CEOs, CMOs, CIOs, all talk to each other, right? And they're all sharing best practices. And so I think Ryder started to become a best practice in these circles, particularly amongst the enterprise. And I think that customer validation was the number one thing to help us sort of win more and more customers. But the second thing is like, you just have to have a really good product. You know this, right? Like if you have a shitty product, then over time, people will realize it's a shitty product and they're not going to want to use you, right? And so, if you're not solving those problems and the product isn't good and you're not getting time to value quickly enough, then you're going to get swapped out really fast. That was the key thing that we were seeing, which is like, we have to deliver value, we have to deliver it fast, and we have to demonstrate ROI, right? Like that's the only way this is going to work in this market.
So winning a lot of lighthouse logos and using kind of that as a snowball, but also to your point, great product wins a lot of customers, but also I'm assuming a lot of that really hands-on customer services that you deliver to your clients really brings out their loyalty.
Yeah.
So that they can kind of spread,
I also have to say, we have very charismatic founders and executives, right? So like you just have to, like we have like texting relationships with literally every executive that's like in every Fortune 500 that we work with. So they're so close by that they know that if something goes wrong or that they have, like we've launched a new thing and it's like a brilliant idea. They're like, look, we want to talk about it right away. And that happens quite often because we're trying to lead the innovation on AI. So whenever something new is launched, we'll get a text message from the CEO being like, what is that thing you just launched? I need to get my hands on it. I need to train my team on it right away. So It's like that type of relationship you have to cultivate, right?
Amazing. So I guess one thing that's very, very apparent to, I guess, people in the industry is the effect of AI in the relationship with humans, the workforce.
Yep.
I'm guessing Ryder also has a lot to do with enabling humans and their relation with AI, but also potentially replacing some of the roles or creating new jobs. So what is the relationship with Ryder and with the enterprise workforce? What is the opportunities? What are some of the things you guys are worried or concerned about? How are you guys thinking about this relationship between AI and the workforce?
I mean, that's like one of the most critical things. So we did this workplace study that talked about why this adoption isn't happening in the 95%. And what we found was a lot of employees where we use the term sabotage, or I think one of like Forbes or Fortune had coined the term, like after looking at our study, they're like, a majority of employees are sabotaging like companies' AI strategy. And what's really happening is that there's a misunderstanding, I think, between employees and sort of like executive teams, business and IT, right? There's like, everybody has the right intention of we want to use AI. But the big part of it is like, sometimes you have IT that's handing you a solution. Like, for example, like you might be a Microsoft shop and it's like, okay, well, it should just be easy for you to use Copilot. But somebody might be like, hey, Copilot doesn't serve the specific need that I need for what I'm trying to do right now. And so if you give employees tools that don't work for what they want, they're going to either, sabotage, they're going to find their own tools, they're going to divert and do their own strategy, right? And we're finding that happening a lot. And so a big part of what we're seeing is that there's this friction right around humans and the technology. So if we can align that where, when you get most companies able to do that, then you can start to move forward on a strategy. Strategy doesn't work if those two things don't happen. So number one, you got to get your people empowered. Number two, you actually have to start promoting the people, and promoting in the sense of like giving them the tools, but actually finding those champions who can be like your AI advocates, right? The AI leaders in the organization who are going to drive forward those initiatives. That's pretty critical. But when you're asking me the question around what am I most worried about? I would say like we all know that the technology right now has outpaced our usage, right? Like in terms of the technology is so advanced, we're probably only using like 1% of what it's capable of doing today. I'm most worried about us squandering the fact that we have this amazing technology and that it will take us like 10 years to figure out how to use it, right? It's like I've already am using AI in like everything I do in my day-to-day life. I literally like gain, hours and hours of more free time in my day because I can use AI to do all this stuff, both personal and for work purposes. Like we can apply this to literally everything that we're doing. And we can do it in a safe way, right? A safe, secure, and a compliant way. And so, yeah, that's my biggest concern is like we're going to miss the boat as like a human race on using AI for the better of everything that we're doing.
Super interesting because like you, I use AI pretty much everything from top to bottom, from work, personal, family-related stuff, kids-related stuff, sending emails to school teachers.
You should never have to write any of those things, right? Like,
right. And they're more empathetic when they write them. So I'm like, oh my God, I sound so good in my email.
Yeah, don't I, right? You're like, did I even write this?
So maybe going back to kind of the enterprise settings a little bit, you mentioned how some of the employees might be sabotaging the opportunity for enterprises to adopt AI. So what questions around AI do you think most people are getting kind of wrong or have misconceptions about?
Yeah.
And what should people actually, like, I guess, lean into or be more curious about in terms of AI?
Okay. So many misconceptions, but let me start with a couple. So the first one is there's way too much focus on LLMs right now, right? It's like this next new LLM gets launched. It's this size token context window. It costs this much money to train. I mean, it's like crazy, right? It's like, it's never a good business model where you make $1 billion and you lose $1 billion, right? And so the challenge with LLMs is that, particularly in enterprise, like the more you like tweak and mess around with the LLMs, the more unstable things can become, right? And at this point, like the LLMs are really good, right? So like I don't really need another really large language model. So I think that the first thing is like I think we need to stop focusing on the LLM. I think we've moved way past that. We got to start thinking about like the applications, the agents, what we can do with them, how we can make them really, really productive. So that's the first thing. The second thing, misconception-wise, is what we talked about, which is the 95% failure and the $30 to $40 billion investment. There are companies out there that are saving billions of dollars, creating billions of dollars of value using AI, right? And they're doing it with just a handful of agents, right? So again, I think we're like scratching the surface on how we use it. But I think that the thing we don't want to overlook is that while we haven't quite figured it out, this is kind of like, I remember electric cars and self-driving cars. Everybody's crapping on electric cars and self-driving cars. We're like, they're not safe, all this stuff. And now we've kind of gotten over that hump a little bit. We're going to get there with AI. So we just have to be patient. Like these strong use cases are going to come to the point where we're going to look at this and be like, we were crazy to think that we would potentially walk away from this or there's no value here. It's just people are still kind of trying to figure it out. I think the third and last thing is that we really need to look at AI is not a one-stop shop thing, right? There's a difference between consumer and enterprise grade. And even within enterprise, there's different ways that you can do it. There's so many conversations I've had with companies that are like, oh, we're working on, we have our core AI solution and, we're working closely on it and we'll come back to you in 6 months. Wow. In 6 months, if you haven't figured this out in 1 week, you're in trouble, right? Like you need to figure out your AI strategy. You need to get ROI right now. And so one part of it is I think a lot of companies are really concerned about like, I have to pick my winning horse now. But in many cases, there's not a one-stop shop for all this stuff. So those are kind of the three main things I would say. There's probably 10 of them, but those are three for sure that are, that I hear countless times over and over again.
So we also spend a lot of time with enterprise executives, and most people think basic AI today is synonymous with using ChatGPT or Claude or Gemini or whatnot. What are some of the tips you want to share with the executives that are listening to this podcast now that goes beyond using just the LLMs?
Yeah.
What are some of the tips, tricks, tools you've found to be useful that can really kind of expand their mind around adopting AI?
Yeah. Well, you were asking me earlier about the people, and so I mean, as what I can see, almost all of our customers are using AI to give their employees superpowers, right? It's not about I need to shave a bunch of headcount. It's more like I've got a great workforce that I want to upskill and give them the ability to do 100 times more work, right? Like in a day. And so, the mind share shift that I would give every executive is a couple things. First is like understanding like that is what we're trying to do here, right? It's like we're trying to make your organization thousands times more productive, efficient, help you accelerate and get to revenue faster. And the second is really like that mind shift around thinking about AI less around as a tool, but it's actually more like a digital employee, right? So like you need to think about onboarding, Writer or any tool as if, you're training a new employee that's like super smart, that doesn't get tired, and that can do lots of tasks all at one time, right? And so I think once you start thinking about it that way, you can start to view it as that's what the opportunity is. So I'll give you like a couple quick examples. Like we work with a Fortune 500 CPG company that saves 55,000 hours a year, helping them to launch like new brands, right? So that's like equivalent to 25 FTE, right? Managing all their brands, writing their product descriptions, launching into markets, and you're getting that at a fraction of the cost. Like imagine getting 25 people who are fully trained and can work 24/7, right? Like that's pretty incredible. We have, Fortune 100 company that is basically deploying this to all their wealth managers, and it's giving them 30% more time in their day doing research, analysis, client relation tasks for them. And then we have a Fortune 10 company that literally shaved off 90% of the time for like compliance review. So it went from like 6 weeks to just a handful of days to like get legal compliance done. So in that amount of time, you can like launch a new product, you can get approvals, you can get all those things done. And like literally that's like one agent, right? And now we have customers that are launching their like 500th agent. So like you can imagine the scale once you get it in production, you start rolling it out. So that's like the mind shift change is like, there's real stuff here. It's just you have to find it, but you have to treat it as if, you can't just like plug it in and be like, oh, it's going to figure it out. It has to be integrated into your process. That's the way it works.
Yeah, that's fascinating because I think one of the superpowers a lot of software engineers have is, there's a term called, 10x engineers, 100x engineer, because engineers can actually spin up servers
Yeah.
to do lots of work in parallel. Whereas a lot of, I guess, more traditional, knowledge workers who are using pen and paper, they can't really scale themselves to hundreds, right?
Right.
Their maximum, I guess, throughput is bounded by their energy and time.
Yeah.
Whereas now with this power of AI agents, even the business workers who are not used to spinning up hundreds of servers, they can spin up hundreds of employees that will work for them. So it's really giving that power of technology in the hands of everyday people to be able to scale their outputs by a factor of 100 plus or thousands.
100%.
So I think that's super fascinating.
And one thing that's super interesting about where we're going, at least with this technology, is like traditional companies like SaaS solutions have always focused on selling seats. But with AI, it's like you don't need to sell seats anymore because like you could have one super employee that's working with like thousands of agents and be extremely productive, right? So it completely shifts the paradigm, I think, of like the pricing. It's a different conversation that we could probably spend an hour on, but it completely changes the paradigm of pricing for technology, right? Because now it's actually less reliant on number of seats and humans pushing buttons. You could have one superhuman, or I call it a superhuman, but it just could be me and you, that's orchestrating thousands of agents, right? And that they could run a whole company that way.
Yeah, that's why I also redefined our company's mission as we're building the AI workforce of tomorrow.
Yeah.
And I think everyone now can be the managers of AI workforce instead of being purely an IC who's, punching in words into keyboards.
100%.
So I think that's fascinating.
Yep.
Maybe this feels a little more of a Black Mirror episode.
Yeah.
One of a friend runs a fairly later stage company. And, one of the employees just left the company and tried to sue the company. Normally, having a lawsuit as an employee can cost a lot of money. You have to hire a lawyer, could cost you 6 figures.
Yeah.
But now using GPT to send lawsuit letters.
Right.
So there is a world where even a lot of damages can be done in 1,000 time fold,
Yep.
where there will be 1,000 time more lawsuits and papers being flown around.
Yeah.
And no longer like lawyers will be able to consume all the data. So they'll have to rely on AI on both ends just to go through these kind of battles.
You're going to have legal agents talking to each other, right?
Exactly, with hundreds of lawsuits flying at each other. So I think there's some real interesting negative downside to this as well.
Totally.
So yeah, what a world we live in. So you probably experienced this too, as you have this extended experience working in Silicon Valley. We've probably seen multiple different ways, right? We've seen the social wave, there's the cloud, there's mobile.
Yep.
And now we have this like wave thing. Maybe in between there might be a glimpse of a metaverse along the way.
Yep.
But what's so different about AI this time?
Yeah. Well, we talked a little bit about, the technology outpacing like our current usage. Like that's one thing that you don't see quite often. And I think a big reason for that is, a lot of previous like products and technology require a lot of input, like human input. But with AI, there's like already so much like content in the world, whether it's like consumer content, enterprise content. The ability for AI to continuously analyze and learn is like what's helping accelerate like our evolving nature of the product. So it's just like a completely, I almost view it as like sometimes people ask me like, oh, is Writer a SaaS solution? And I'm like, it's not a SaaS solution. It's like a completely different paradigm of technology, right? It's like something that is like at this point is like really hard to like pinpoint and put into a box on what it can do. And that's kind of where we are with AI. It's like it can be the everything for everything at any point, right? And so like it's just a matter of where we want to focus that time and attention on. And so we just so happen to choose we want to focus on enterprise workflows, right? And we just do that very well. But I think that's the thing that's really unique about what we're doing is like it doesn't fit in this one box, right? It can do so many things. And because it can do it so well, and it's also like we were talking about Black Mirror or whatever you want to call it, like it starts to think on its own to some degree. It's like pretty crazy what it can do. Like we just launched action agents like literally a few weeks ago, and it's literally the closest thing that I've seen to enterprise AGI. It's like you can ask it to prepare, like for example, if you have a board meeting come up, you could say, can you help me prepare the first track of this board deck for me? Like take a look at my Salesforce, look at all of the customer records that you have, and can you put the first thing together? And it can go in and do all that stuff, right? And it can do it actually quite well. And so it's pretty incredible, like what you can ask it to do with like pretty generalist tasks, and it can go and execute it, right? And like we're just like scratching the surface on that right now.
Nice. And maybe to the audience, the executives of large enterprises who are listening, if you were to plant a seed in their minds today, before we switch the topics a little bit, what is the seed that you want to plant in their minds about AI that hopefully they'll see the opportunity instead of the risks?
Yeah. So, I mean, the big thing, as we talked about, is the ROI is there. And it requires, like, I think I'd heard somebody say, in order for you to get past the zero, the negative or zero gains, like you got to do more POCs. What I would pivot that to say is, it's not that you need to do more POCs. You need to treat AI and the technology as if it's an employee. You have to onboard it properly, right? And so once you can actually determine what you want to use it for, have it solve a very specific problem and really identify what the ROI you're trying to get at, you will get there with AI. You can do it. It can happen. And the second piece of it is you need a trusted partner for you to get there. So, that's the reason why we're so like close with our customers, is that, this is a difficult problem to solve. Like I talked about earlier, you need trusted advisors to help you get there, right? And so those are the two things. ROI is there. You need a trusted advisor. Otherwise, it's very difficult.
I think that's fantastic because I think a lot of people still think of adopting AI as buying a couple of seats on those AI Pro LLMs. But I don't think most of leaders today think through the lens of onboarding an AI employee.
Yep.
So even the departments like HR could be like AR, AI resources or something like AI enablement. So how do we train and get the AI agent to have the right context about your business and make sure it's plugged into all the different
the right
CDPs,
tools and everything. Exactly. Yep.
To be able to have a knowledgeable, be productive in your business. I think that's a really fascinating view.
Yep.
You made a really interesting choice in a personal life of things. So you lived in the Bay Area at the heart of Silicon Valley for a considerable period of time, working at really, really interesting companies. But you choose to move your family to Singapore.
Yeah.
and you lived in California, which is known for one of the better weathers.
Yep.
Nothing against Singapore.
Yeah.
I've been there a few
It's
times.
hot. Yeah.
It's quite hot. So,
Yeah.
what was the driver for you to make that change?
I mean, there's a lot of factors. I mean, I'm still in the Bay Area like once a month, so I don't. And my dad still lives here, so there's not like a huge draw that I'm like completely left the area. I feel like this is still my home. A big part of it was during the pandemic when I was working at Miro, my mom passed away from pancreatic cancer. Like losing a parent in the place that you call home made me feel a little bit more like Oakland wasn't as much felt like home anymore. And so I wanted to like find my roots a little bit more. My mom originally came from Indonesia. Singapore is like 1 hour from Indonesia. And so, there was a little bit of a pull for me to be like, hey, I want to go back to my roots a little bit, right? And so I wanted to bring my wife and my son over there to be able to experience like international living, but also like being able to work for, a company based in Silicon Valley. I still felt like I still had that draw to come back here. But at the same time, like AI is going global, right? So one part of it too was being able to expand this internationally, right? So I've been able to really make a lot of headway in getting AI adopted in APAC as well. But a big part of it was one part personal and one part work related. But I still have very close ties to California and being here as well.
Yeah, I'm flying from Singapore to Bay Area once a month. That's an incredible sacrifice.
Yeah.
Plus,
well, it's like a commute. I don't commute during the week, so I guess if you add up all the hours, it's about the same. But I will say that sitting in a box for about 10 hours that's completely dark, that's like the deepest focus that you can get. I don't think I've been the most productive in the last 10 hours than I have been this whole month, just being able to do that.
Wow.
But I'm not, that's not an endorsement to be on the plane that often though.
Yeah. But I do feel like Silicon Valley, or I guess San Francisco, is really having a big comeback with the whole AI. A lot of founders, a lot of startups are really kind of gravitating toward this area. So I totally understand like why you take that investment to come back to the Bay Area so often to stay connected with the companies.
And a lot of our customers and partners are still like all around the world, but the heart of the innovation is still here.
Maybe switching gears a little bit, I want to let the audience learn more about you.
Sure.
What are you most passionate about these days?
Oh, most passionate about these days. Okay, so I mean, obviously living and breathing AI. So I mean, just from like a work, and so like I'm teaching my son how to use. I mean, he's just turned 9, so I'm teaching him how to use AI. Like I don't even go on like search anymore. I used to work at Google, love using Google search, but nowadays it's like I can get so much more done in AI than I do having to click through links, do all my own research, do all that stuff. So I'm teaching him how to effectively use AI. And in one case is like, it's been pretty incredible to watch him like learn how to use the technology. It's sort of like, I want to upskill him to be prepared as he goes into, higher education, the workforce, like how to start using these tools because it's going to get more and more advanced. So a big part of it is like educating him, educating the people around me on like how to effectively use it, both in their everyday life, because it's sort of like I get so much enjoyment and so much more free time because I use it. Like I want to pass that on to other people. And then just in my personal day-to-day life, really just enjoy living in Singapore, like a new environment. I've only been there now about 1.5 years. So there's still a lot more to explore, still exploring Southeast Asia in between the times I'm coming back here or traveling. Last year, I think I did like 15 international trips. Some here, we're at Davos or at Cannes, CES. We're like literally at every basically major event where our customers or partners are at. So in between that, I like to try to settle down for some good food in Singapore.
Nice. Yeah. Last year I was on 44 flights.
Oh my gosh. Well, then you beat me
I was trying to
quite a number.
I tried to cut it down to half this year.
Jesus.
So far I've been on 22.
Yeah.
So it's already kind of like, pretty tough.
Yeah.
Hopefully we'll have rockets so they can go to Singapore within an hour instead of 14, 15 hours.
Well, hopefully we can just send our AI employees to go do the work for us,
nice.
Right?
Yeah. With Metaverse, maybe.
Yeah.
All right, we like to end each of our episode with what we call the human prompt.
Yeah.
Let's say today you got access to this omniscient, omnipotent, all-knowing, all-powerful AI agent that's really kind of free of hallucination, can really kind of teach you about anything or help you with anything. What is the one single prompt that you want to ask or put into this AI agent?
Okay. So I would say this, like, I want to retire by a certain age. I would put in the prompt and say, okay, I want to retire comfortably and live, I think my end goal is like I'd love to live half the time in Asia and half the time in the Bay Area. How do I get there? What do I need to do to make that happen? I would like to leave the prompt very open-ended like that. I would like this AI assistant of mine or agent of mine to basically lay out everything that I need to do to get to that plan. So that would include like where I need to invest my money, maybe where I need to buy real estate, what applications I need to, sign to get, the right investment accounts here and there. I want the agent to do all of those things for me. I don't want to have to fill out a single form. And I want it to give me frequent updates to show me, okay, here are the milestones that you need to do, like in order to get to those steps, and have you achieved them or not? I wanted to basically lay out that roadmap for me and do all the research, right? And that would be the single prompt I would ask him to do, because I use this as a parallel to when we were moving to Singapore. The amount of administrative and paperwork that I had to do just to make that happen was immense. It was like we were importing our dog over there. Like I have probably 1,000 emails with the veterinary service in Singapore, all this paperwork back and forth, apply for housing, apply for my kid's school, apply for a bank account. I don't know. That's like probably a full-time job right there. If I could have asked my AI agent just to say, hey, I'm going to be moving to Singapore. Can you help fill out everything I need to do in order to land on day one and have housing, a bank account, my kid's school, and my dog safely in my new apartment? How can I make that happen? Right. And I think if I had a strong AI agent back then when I was moving, I would have saved 1,000 hours from doing that. And I think that in the future, and not in the near distant future, we will be able to have an agent that will actually be able to execute almost everything for that. I'm actually even scared that my son will be able to say, hey, help me get into Stanford or Berkeley, and it will basically help him like chart his path. These are all the extracurriculars you need to do. This is the essay you need to write. These are the grades you need to get, and all that stuff. That's how powerful it can be. But that's what I would ask it to do. I would ask it to chart my retirement for me.
So I think part is like a life architect. The other is actually carrying out a lot of those things.
Yeah.
At what point do you want to do some of those things yourself?
Yeah.
Versus like handing off everything to AI agent. For example, like writing an essay. Maybe AI agent can write all the essays for you because it knows your value system, all of your history, life story.
Yeah.
So at what point do you want to like take things over? It's like, hey, you know what? I want to still do a couple of things.
Yeah. I mean, I would say this, like, I'm kind of more of an experienced person. So like, I don't really have too much of a problem never having to fill out another paperwork or essay. I will say though, like, sometimes when I'm giving a keynote, like, I have the option to be like, should I have writer write it for me or should I write it myself? And I'll sometimes pull it back and say, hey, I kind of want to write it myself because there's a little bit of a different emotion involved in it. But I don't have a problem giving 99% of that because I'd like to spend that other 99% experiencing life, right? Enjoying life and doing things that, that doesn't require me to necessarily do repetitive tasks over and over. And I think for me, like writing an email, writing an essay, writing a speech are somewhat repetitive tasks. And so if I can have my master AI agent do that for me, I would gladly do that.
Yeah, I'm there with you. But it's at one point, I also do worry about how our brains are wired, right?
Yeah.
Because a lot of our motivation do come from leaning into effort instead of seeking pleasure first, things like that. So part of it's like, at one point, like, do we start to lose our motivation almost entirely?
Yeah.
Because we're not leaning into effortful things. And also like even like going to workouts, right?
Yeah.
We're kind of like trying to not lose the muscle that we evolved through all this like evolution.
Yes.
Now we just like really struggling to just keep up with maintaining our health.
Right.
So part is like how much of AI will start to make our brains less wrinkly and just be very bland and smooth, like K-beauty brain in a way. So part of this is like, how do we draw the right balance between maintaining our optimal health and I guess mental cognitive ability while still being able to carry out a lot of this fulfilling life.
Yeah, for sure. And I would say too, like a big part of it too is like changing, like we always talk about, we're trying to actually move the mundane work out of your day so you can focus on the creative work. So I totally agree with you. Like we don't want to like lose the muscle of motivation, but we want to maybe shift it to more like, how can I spend more time doing like the highly strategic and creative things? And I actually think that will allow us to have a lot more creative, innovative people because it actually gives them more time than like, I have to do this mundane task that like nobody wants to do, right? And so hopefully that's the world we're going to versus the world where everybody's sitting in motorized seats and not using their feet and walking. Like that's not where we want to go. We don't want our brain to go to mush, but we certainly want people to activate a different side of their brain now.
Yeah. We also have other founders watching this show. For to leave the show with one advice, to give to the MindMakers, the AI builders of tomorrow, what advice would you like to share with them to build a successful AI company?
I mean, I would say that all of you are at the leading edge of the most important technology we all have experienced our entire lifetime. So keep building, keep at it. It's a difficult problem for us to all solve, but like this is the community we're trying to build, and we're doing something that's extremely important. And so, yeah, like we're going to run into challenges. We're going to be doing it together, but just keep at it because we're on something instrumental and really, really powerful right now.
Nice. Well, Kevin, this was an amazing conversation. Thank you so much for being on our show and sharing your thoughts on AI and the current state of AI.
Yeah.
And we learned a ton about how Ryder is viewing the future, and we'd love to kind of try it out ourselves.
Yeah, sounds great.
So if you want to learn more about you or about the company, where can we find you?
Ryder.com, pretty easy. And I'm on LinkedIn and Instagram, so you can find me there too.
Nice. All right.
All right.
Thanks so much.
Thanks.